So what is the ABC Book Club? What is that information they're giving me right there going to allow me to do? I could create a table. Let's go the table route. Let's do that. Let's say, so if I'm going to go the ABC book route, so this is, let's say, number of books, and this would be the cost, right? Okay. If I'm in the ABC Book Club, 0 books is going to be how much of a cost? Nope. 40. I'm going to be a subscriber no matter what. I'm subscribing to this thing. It says a monthly fee of $40 plus $2 per book read in that month. Well, if I read no books, it's going to cost me $40. Make sense? Now, nobody would probably do that, right? I mean, how many times you subscribe to something but never use it, right? But that's what we're getting at here. If I write now, if you would have not done that one, you would have been okay. If you would have just gone to one book, how much would I pay if I did one book? 42. What about 2 books? What about 3 books? Now I'm going to go just to there because that's really exceeding all my options here, right? Now the thing there says 75. I don't want to have to make this table out to 75, right? But because it's the only one that is really bizarre, we should be able to, whether narrow or focus on that or not, we should be able to answer if it's 75. If my table here in a moment for the other book club doesn't produce what I need here. Okay, so this is the easy book club. So number of books and then cost. So 0 books would cost me how much? 35. 1 book would cost me 38. 2 books would cost me 41. 3 books would cost me 44. Okay. Four books would be 47. 5 books would be Does that kind of make sense right there? Okay. We're looking for the same number of books to produce the same number of costs. So a table will work. Okay. If we look at this right here, this first table, and the data they give me is saying that your cost is equal to $40 plus 2 times every book. I'll just use B as my variable. Does that make sense? This one down here is saying that my cost is $35 plus $3 for every book. We want to see when will these costs be the same. So if those 2 things are going to be equal, doesn't it make those 2 things going to be equal? So I can say 40 plus 2b is equal to 35 plus 3b. I subtract 2b from both sides. And then that'll give me 40 equals 35 plus b. And subtract 35 from both sides. You're going to give me 5 books. Does that make sense? Now, let's say 5 wasn't the result. Let's say 5 and 50 wasn't there, and I went down to the 6th one, and they weren't the same. So I was showing 1, 4, 5, and 6 are not the answer. So what would that mean my answer would be? 75, and I wouldn't have had to gone that far in my table, right? But this is, so a table in the short run, maybe that's not all that bad of a process to decipher the answer. But the reason for formulas is for answers that are like that, where if I had to go out to 75, that's going to be a pain in the butt. Nobody wants to do that, okay? But if I understand the algebraic part of it or the formula part of it, I might speed things up. So in parallelogram, so this is a geometry question. It says in parallelogram A, B, C, D below, it says AC is a diagonal that measures, or is a diagonal. It says the measure of angle ABC is 40 degrees, and the measure of angle ACD is 57 degrees. What's the measure of angle CAD? So they want to know what is this angle right there. Let's take a minute to see what you come up with there. I'm not sure if they're, I'll double check. It is 83. How's it 83? Okay. Like you had like all of these in the, so you took 40 plus this one? Yeah, I think so. So what we're getting at here is if this is a parallelogram, those two angles, opposite angles, are congruent. Okay, so that's 40. And then if I've got this right here, what kind of shape is that right there? It's a triangle, right? How many degrees are there in a triangle? 180. So if I've got 57 and 40, yeah. Do that one. So when we get, and I'll go through this the long way here. If I have 8, so they're basically telling you to substitute, right? So this is 8 times a half minus 3 divided by a half, right? Okay. So we're going to get 4 minus 3, which is 1, right? And we'll take 1 and divide it by a half, and that turns into 2. Okay. Now, if I'm a person that doesn't want to go through all of this, order of operations, that kind of thing, I would probably take 1/2 and change it to what? I would change it to 0.5. And now I would type on my calculator, I would take that 8 times 0.5 minus 3, hit enter, right? And then divide that by 0.5, and it will spit back your 2 to you. So I've always been of the belief, if you are fancy enough with your calculator, okay, if you know the ins and outs and all that kind of stuff with your calculator, you should be able to answer every one of these questions with it. If you're not fancy with your calculator, as stated by the ACT in the directions, and I believe I have to read this part of the directions to you, that every single question on the math test can be answered without the use of a calculator. Okay, so it's not a necessity. But if it's a tool that you're allowed to use, obviously, might as well use it. In the standard XY coordinate plane, what is the midpoint of the line segment that has endpoints at 3, 8 and 1, -4? Midpoint. So this is a geometry concept. All right, let's approach this question like we have absolutely no idea what we're doing. All right, we got the endpoints, right? What's midpoint mean? It's the middle. Okay, so if I don't know the algebraic formula for this, I could at least graph everything, right? I've graphed the things that they gave me in the problem. If I look at negative, so this is if I connect those, that's the segment, right? If I look at -2, -12, that'd be all the way down here, right? Is that going to be the midpoint of that segment? Nope. What about -1, -6? Nope. Now 11 halves. So 11 halves is what, 5.5? 5.5. So I go 5.5 in the right, and then down 1.5. Is that going to be the midpoint? 2, 2. Well, it looks like it could be, right? So maybe. And now 4, -12. Is 4, -12 going to be the midpoint? 2, 2. Did I really have to do any real algebra there? No. However, if you want a formula for a midpoint is you add your x's, divide by 2, add your y's, divide by 2. So if I take these x's, add them, what do you get? 4 divided by 2 gives you that 2 right there. Take your y values, -4 and 8, add those together. What do you get? 4 divided by 2 gives you that, right? So knowing that formula allows you to get this to be your answer a lot quicker, because if you didn't, you have to graph this and do that stuff, right? Okay, maybe this should take me, because I know the formula, maybe, I don't know, 8 to 10 seconds. If you had to draw this, maybe you're now looking at 45, 60, 70 seconds, okay? And that's time that we want to save for things later on. This last one says the fluctuation of water depth that appears shown in the figure below. One of the following values gives the positive difference in feet between the greatest water depth and the least water depth shown in the graph. Which value is it? Okay, so what we've got here is basically talking about the tide coming in and out, right? Okay, high tide at the pier it's 12 feet. Okay, down here at low tide it's 6 feet. Does that make sense? Then at high tide again it's back 12 feet. Low tide is back to 6 feet. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay. They want to know what is the difference. It says one of the following values gives the positive difference in feet between the greatest water depth, which would be 12 feet, and the lowest or least water depth, which would be 6 feet. Yeah, so what is that distance in between? Be 6, wouldn't it? Yeah. We're not talking about the difference, not the midpoint. I see what you're saying. You're doing the midpoint, not the midpoint, but that difference. That difference would be 6, right? That's all they're asking for there. In a minute. What's the slope of that line? What's another word? What's another phrase that you guys have learned for slope? M is, so y equals mx plus b. M is the slope. But I was looking for rise over run. So if I want to go from this point to that one, what's the rise? I gotta go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? And what's the run? 1, 2, 3, 4. Down 6 to the right 4. That right there, right? Okay. Isn't it easier though to go y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1? Gives you -6/4 that way? Let's just one on the right here because that's what we've been working on recently. Which of the following expressions is equivalent to x to the 2/3? Which one of those is equivalent to x to the 2/3?
Oh, I know this. I feel like I should say.
It is k. Okay. Now, hey, what if we forgot? What if we forgot? Because there's going to be several questions on this thing that say, here is an expression. What is equivalent to it? What if you forgot? What could you do? So your calculators don't have the ability to use X, but could I choose a number for X? Like 5. Okay. Could I put 2/3 in? 5 and raise 5 to 2/3 and type that in on my calculator? See what it gives me, right? Okay. Could I then put 5 right there? See what it gives me. Put 5 right there, see what it gives me. Put 5 right there, see what it gives me. Put 5 right there, see what it gives me, right? 5 right there, see what it gives me. One of those is going to be exactly what that one was, right? Does that make sense? Okay. So and that's simply because it's multiple choice. If you don't know how to simplify something or you're uncertain, choose values for the variables that are there. Okay. Make them different. Okay. So if there's like A's and B's and C's, don't make all of them. Don't make A2, B2, and C2. Make them different. Go like A is 2, B is 3, C is 4, something like that. And then plug those in for the different parts in the optional answers and see which ones give you the same result back. And that will be your answer. Okay? That's a test-taking strategy for multiple choice tests. Yes. You guys remember how to do a question like 23? 8% of 60 is 1/5 of what number? You guys remember how to do that?
No. We're going to go with 24.
What does the word of mean in algebra? Of means multiplication. So this means multiply. What's is mean? Does it is mean equals? 1/5 of multiplication. Now it says what number? I don't know what number, so what should I let that be? X. So this is 8% of 60 is 1/5, 5, of X. Could I do that? How would I solve for X here? Because X is already solved. It's already by itself, right? But how do I get that 1/5 out of there? Multiply by 5. Okay. So I'm going to take 0.08 times 60. That's on the left-hand side. And I multiply both sides by 5. And when in doubt, you Charlied out, and you got 24, didn't you? You said 24 at the beginning, didn't you? All right.